It's getting dark now, huh? It's wild. Yeah, I'm still not used to that.
First couple of days with Josh Gordon, what have your impressions been?
Really been good. He's done a really nice job picking up the system. Very impressed with just the timing that he and Russ are working through and working on. But you can see the veteran. He knows how to play the game. You can see how he's picked up the system pretty quick. So been very, very positive.
In an ideal world, where do you think he could help you? What part of his game could help you guys?
Again, another guy gives you a matchup issue on the outside. I've been seeing a lot of man-to-man lately. So another guy that they have to be worried about when you put him out there with Tyler and DK and those guys. But big physical receiver, helps us in the run game. And then, of course, there's big play capability that you look at that he's always produced certain places. So excited he's here.
Does it appear he still has that legs under him?
It looks like it. Yeah, I mean, it's still early for us. I mean, a couple days, limited practices of us out there working. But like I said, we're excited he's here.
What's the biggest challenge, the 49ers, especially their defensive line? What's sort of the biggest challenge of that for you guys?
Well, obviously the depth that they have is really, I don't know if it's going to be matched in the league just with the guys that they have. Bosa, terrific talent across the board. I mean, Armstead. I mean, you go across the board. They're really good. Playing a little different this year. The way they're playing with a little wide 9 technique, which is different. I believe they have a new D-line coach. Pretty sure. But they play hard. They rotate through. They stay fresh, and they work well together. I mean, some of the games that they run are really impressive to watch, and they were very disruptive in the pocket. So it'll be quite a challenge for us, like it is for most people. But again, we'll go out there and we'll battle those guys. But very good unit. You see why they're number 1 in the league in pass defense.
What are the challenges of trying to figure out a wide 9 defense and what that brings to the table? What stresses does that put on you?
Well, it's just, again, they really have a gap. They're always trying to penetrate, right? So they're always trying to attack. They're always trying to funnel back into the quarterback. And so you just got to be really good with your sets. And then if you overset, like if the tackle sets too wide, right, they have combinations or games and stunts that they'll use. So we got to be very disciplined with our sets, with our targets, great communication when they do decide to game. Those are probably the biggest challenges, but they have a tremendous get-off. So when the ball's coming up, they do a great job of, again, attacking off the line of scrimmage and trying to get penetration. They don't always get there, but they're knocking people back into the quarterback, which can be disruptive.
Are they still mostly zone?
Still playing a bunch of zone. Yep, they're mixing the man-to-man, but there's a bunch of cover 3 that shows up on the cutouts.
What do you feel like your offense has missed since Will's been out?
I don't think we've missed much. We miss him, obviously a terrific person, but it was cool to see Jacob step up last week. We all know what Luke's going to give us in terms of energy and toughness and things like that. So I can't point to one thing. I think we're playing with a lot of confidence right now, which is good. If we need to run it, we can run it. If we need to throw it, we can throw it. And I think that's a good formula. Again, last year when we were playing really well towards the latter part end of the year, that's what we were doing. And I think we're doing that now. But, again, pleased with where the tight ends are. And it was cool to see Jake not only get his first one, but then the one in overtime was pretty cool.
With Josh, how limited does he look with the ankle? I know he's listed as limited, but does he look fine?
He's moving around really good out there. So, again, I haven't asked him, but I don't notice anything about it. So, again, we'll see how he does. Just, tomorrow's today's Thursday for us. Tomorrow's Friday. These weeks are always hard because you're getting used to it. But he's moving around good.
I know it's not your job to worry about what other teams are doing and why, but is it a little bit bizarre that not another team claimed him and you guys were 28 in the waiver order and no one else put a claim ahead of him?
I think everybody just looks at each situation based on their roster, and again, like I said, we're excited that he's here, and he's working really hard. I mean, he's here, he's studying, we're moving around, putting him in different spots. So, so far everything's going, I think, how we hoped it would.
Does he have any background with a system like this that you can tell for, like, is there any crossover that he's
and talking to him, he's heard some of the concepts. Again, we all run variations of the same stuff, right? It's the verbiage is a little bit different, but he's heard some of the terms. So again, he is comfortable with some of them. Some of it's new. The big thing is, okay, as you pick it up to go out there and play well, you need to be able to go out there and react because he's a receiver. But from what I've seen so far, he's doing a really good job picking it up, and Russ has been really good working with him. Nate's been good with him, so We still have a few more days to figure it out for sure, but the system is not a concern.
The wide receivers group is, loose, likes to have fun. They really have that vibe, looking from the outside. How do you think that could help Josh, or, how have you noticed that group kind of embrace him and the culture that's already in place?
It's been great. Again, I think we all I don't see them till later that night, the dances and stuff they do, but that's the culture of the room with those guys. It's kind of the culture of the building that we have. So I think that'll be really good for all of them. Again, some of the young players, it's good for them. Just the way we want guys to be themselves. Hey, compete. Work your butt off to be the best you can be. But those guys, they recognize that he can help us, and he's been great. So I think that feeling each other out and that him getting used to the room is that happens early on, and then you move on, you get out on the field, and it all becomes normal.
I know this begs a self-serving answer, Brian, but what do you think you've done for Russell Wilson's career in a year and a half, and then what do you think he's done for yours?
I'll certainly answer probably the second one first. What he's done for my career. We have a special relationship. I speak to that a lot. He and I talk about way more than just football. We talk about families. We talk about lots of different things. When I got here, I was excited to get to know him and get to work with him. He pushes me every day. He says I push him. He pushes me every day. It's just a really cool vibe. He's a tireless worker. So he energizes me. I think that's something that there's no question about it. I get excited coming into work knowing I get to, push his buttons and challenge him and take a guy that's got so much talent and help him in some regards. In terms of how we've helped him, it's basically the philosophy of how we train the quarterbacks. We train them in a very specific style here, and that's really, there's two main things. It's the command of the system, which I think we all recognize he's growing in that regard. The things that he does at the line of scrimmage is unbelievable. It doesn't get probably talked about enough. He solves so many problems at the line of scrimmage with protection changes, run checks, things like that. So that's the first element that we kind of dove into going back, a year. And so now year two helps. And then the second area would be fundamentals. Just the footwork, the drops, things like that he bought into day one. And again, I think we got a long way to go, he and I. But love coaching him. I love the fact that as good of a player as he is, that he bought in right away to that philosophy of, hey, coach me. Hey, teach me what you know. Teach me what you want. And we started with those two areas.
Joey Hunt came in starting against a really stout front, a team that blitzes a lot. It could be a challenge on protections and all that. What do you think?
Yeah, he played really good. You watched the game winner to Jacob. He was one-on-one with Vita Vea. It was a cool battle. Played terrific. Like I told you guys, we trust Joey. Nobody works harder than he does. He's on top of his stuff. He knows the calls. He's been waiting for an opportunity. Now his opportunity comes and goes out there and played really, really good against really a physical group. This group, obviously, each week, it's the NFL. You're going to deal with different issues, and they'll tax him in some regards as well. But for his first game, I wasn't surprised, but he did play very, very well.
Is it sort of just hard to get Rashad Penny a lot of snaps right now with the way Chris is playing? Or?
Yeah, I think when we looked at it, we came out of the game, we're like, it would have been great to get him a few more snaps. But Chris is playing really good right now, and he doesn't want to come out. He doesn't want to come out. We're not worried about the workload right now. Do we want Rashad getting carries? Sure. We got a few in there, but sometimes the game goes a different way. We weren't betting on being down early like we were and then fighting back. But he will make plays this season and hopefully this week that help us win a lot of games.
When you go down 7-0 real quick, does the game script change to you went with 3 and a 4 pass, whatever it was, or was that the script you guys were going to go with regardless?
Yeah, no, that early in the game it wouldn't change. You might adjust a few things. Like the way we set up the openers, it's not where, okay, you have to call 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You've got top runs and top passes that you like, but that early you wouldn't adjust. Even when we were down 21-7, there really wasn't panic. It was just, hey, just keep playing. And, we've proven that with this group we can go out and overcome adversity. We did in Cleveland. That helps when you do it, and then you kind of pull to that. So that's just more of probably that situation or something that we saw that we wanted to look at.
How often do you call play you feel is going to be a good one, then you see how everything's lined up, and you're like, man, this should work? And then particularly speaking of that DK's long touchdown, do you have an idea? Safety's going to go with Tyler and then all he has to do is win a foot race against his man, and we should have a touchdown?
It probably happens a handful of times where you're like, we got the look, but of course there's so many elements that go into it. For example, that play, if you watch that play, is a deep shot play, right? And the protection was beautiful. If you go back and you stop it and you look at it, it wasn't the routes were nice, but the protection was unbelievable. So Russ is back there with all this space and he can see everything. So you can see that and be like, oh, we got the perfect look, and then something happens and there's a breakdown. A guy loses a matchup, or we're late with the snap, and those things happen. So you try not to get too caught up in it, but when you see certain looks, you're like, this should be good. But I've also called plays where I'm like, this play has no chance to work, and it does, just because of the human element that goes into running and tackling and hitting and things like that.
Was that one of those plays where you said we got the look?
That was one of those plays that so we had the look. You never can bank on touchdowns popping out like that one did, but we knew we had a pretty good look for that play, and then they went out and executed it.
Russ today said Tyler Lockett sees the game kind of like a quarterback, and you've said before the way he sees the game is unique, and he brings you plays and all that. When you've got a receiver that has that kind of understanding of the offense, how much does that help everybody around?
It's terrific. I think when you go and you look at quarterbacks historically that have had a guy that they're really comfortable with, it's normally sure there's freak talents, right? Guys, you're just like, wow, what an unbelievable play. But there's the other side of it where they're just on the same wavelength. And Tyler does. He sees the game that we do. He's making as many suggestions, not necessarily play-wise on game day, as some of the coaches do. He's talking to me all the time about things that he's seeing, and that's invaluable because this is the truth. The truth is we see it from the perspective of where we're standing here. You look out. They're out there actually playing the game, so they see things even different than we do. They hear things that are going on out there that we don't hear communication-wise, and he is so valuable in some of the intel that he gives us that it's priceless to allow us to adjust on game day. So you can't put a value on that.
Did you ever script the first 15 play Bill Walsh style?
Did, yep, and I didn't like it. I kind of felt like if you ran the ball on play 1 and play 2 is supposed to be a pass and you rip a run for 9 yards, I always felt like, well, why do I have to go throw it just because it was the next play on the list, you know? So went to this probably, 6-7 years ago, and just felt more comfortable with that, where I could jump around, and it's still the same thing for the guys. They're still learning X amount of plays, and they know that we're not married to it.
So your top runs, top passes, they're game long. They're not just first quarter or first drive.
They're opening thoughts. So somewhere in the first quarter, somewhere in the first 20, 25 plays, most of those should come off of the card. They don't always. Sometimes, again, you're backed up, right? You get the ball and you're backed up at the 5-yard line, so you don't get to it. But most of them you try to get them off the card because they're plays that you like throughout the week and that you feel good either going out and executing, or you're gathering information from the defense or the opponent.
Guy, a corner like Sherm, or even Gilmore in New England, or Jalen Ramsey, that just kind of, you have to be cautious when you throw it. What does that do to the offense?
You're aware of those guys that like to take risk. You're aware of those guys that have that reputation. You try not to over-coach it, especially with a guy like Sherm that Russ knows so well. But we always talk about just line of sight. Like when you're throwing in a direction of a guy that's a great player like that, got the ability to jump on things, you just got to make sure you're seeing things clearly. And again, Russ has the advantage of having gone against him for so many years here that helps. But we don't go into games saying we have to stay away from this guy or we have to stay away from that guy. Just because a lot of times the progressions of the quarterback are driven where he's reading back across from something, but still playing at a really nice level.
Anything else? Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, guys.